There's something strange buried in Wisconsin land records, and it's not a rumor. Back in the mid-90s, state officials were surveying forest land in Jackson County when they found a structure deep in the woods, a one-room cabin that didn't show up on any official map. No permits, no tax filings, no paperwork at all. Just a penciled note on a decades-old surveyor's sketch. Curious, a small team hiked out to investigate. What they found was eerie. The cabin was barely standing, weather-worn, with vines crawling up the sides. Inside, a rusted bed frame, a few cans, and a dusty notebook that looked like a guestbook. The entries spanned from 1981 to 1993. Some were simple, staying overnight, or cold but quiet. Others were unsettling. One entry read, "He passed by again. Didn't look inside this time." Another, "Food's gone. Hope it helped." But when the state ran every name in the book, not a single match came up. No IDs, no census records, no Wisconsin addresses, just names that didn't exist. The state tore the cabin down, but hikers still find the clearing, and some swear it feels wrong. One man claimed he found an old lantern there in 2021, still warm, still glowing, even though it hadn't been touched in decades.
This happened to a guy I know. Not a friend exactly. More like someone I've seen at the local bar 100 times but never talked to. His name's Ray. Mid-40s, single, big into hunting. Lives alone out near Black River Falls, Wisconsin. Ray's not the kind of guy who spooks easy. He's the one who hunts deep in the national forest where most folks won't go. The type who sleeps in tree stands and guts his kill with a dull knife. Everyone in town knew him as tough and quiet. So when he came back from his last solo hunt without his gear, jacket gone, rifle missing, limping and shaking, people noticed. He showed up at the gas station late one afternoon, mud on his jeans, face pale, looking like he'd been in a fight. When someone asked what happened, all he said was, "I had to leave it all. Something was watching me. I just ran." No one really believed him at first. People figured maybe he had an accident or got spooked by a bear. But then the DNR guys found his trail cam, smashed to pieces, almost buried in the dirt. And the last photo on the SD card? That's the part that messed with everyone. But let me back up. According to Ray, it was just supposed to be a weekend hunt. He hiked in about 5 miles from the old fire road, set up his camp on a ridge overlooking a ravine, and placed 2 trail cams near a deer trail he knew well. He said the first day was normal, cold, quiet, no signs of people for miles. On the second day, he got a weird feeling in the early afternoon. Said he saw movement in the trees across the ravine. Not deer, not bear. Just a tall shape, still upright, partly hidden in the brush. He watched it through the scope for almost 10 minutes. It never moved. Ray didn't shoot. Something about it felt off. He kept lowering the scope, then lifting it again, trying to convince himself it was a trick of the light. But every time, it was still there, just watching. That night he barely slept. Said he heard twigs snapping outside his tent. Once, something brushed the canvas near his head. When he flung the flap open, no one was there. In the morning, one of his trail cams was missing, just gone. The other was hanging crooked from a tree, the strap slashed. He decided to pack up and hike out, but right before he left, he checked the trail cam's SD card. He told a few guys at the bar what he saw. The last photo, time-stamped around 3:12 a.m., showed a tall figure standing at the edge of the trees, barely caught in the infrared. You couldn't see a face, just a hood, maybe a coat. But what stood out wasn't the figure. It was the rifle in its hands. Ray's rifle. The same one he'd propped against his tent while he slept. He swore he never heard it being taken. That's when he said he bolted. No gear, no rifle, just his phone and a folding knife in his pocket. He ran until he hit the logging road and flagged down a passing truck. The guy who picked him up told the sheriff Ray looked half wild, eyes darting around like he was still being chased. They found his campsite later, torn open, stuff scattered, no sign of a struggle, but everything felt wrong, like someone had searched it. Ray hasn't gone hunting since. He moved in with his sister in La Crosse, sold off his gear, gave away the rest. Doesn't talk about it unless he's had a few drinks. Then he says things like, "It wasn't human," or "It knew I was alone." Some people think he just had a breakdown, too much time in the woods alone. But others believe something or someone was out there, watching. And the part that still gets brought up around town? The trail cam photo. The one with the figure holding the rifle. Ray gave it to the sheriff, but it was never released. All we know is what he said about it. But the old bartender at Foley's swears he saw it once. Says it looked like a man, but the proportions were off. Arms too long, legs too thin. Face completely obscured in shadow, even though the flash should have lit it up. And the scariest part? Ray's rifle was being held by the barrel, not the grip. Like the person, or whatever it was, didn't understand how to use it. Almost like it was studying him. I used to work nights cleaning an old cheese factory in Wisconsin. It shut down over a year before I got the job, but a private company leased the space for storage and occasional equipment testing. Most of the facility was dark and unused. My job was simple: sweep, mop, make sure nobody was trespassing. Easy money. They hired me through a third-party maintenance company. No one from the original factory was around anymore. Just me and an old security guard named Marvin, who did rounds twice a night. The place was massive. Warehouse-size rooms, catwalks overhead, cold metal tanks, old production lines gathering dust. My shift started at 6 p.m., ended at 2 a.m. I usually kept music playing in my earbuds to pass the time, but I stopped using them after the third night, because that's when I first heard the footsteps. It was around 11:30 p.m. I was sweeping along the main floor of the packaging wing when I heard something above me. Metal on metal footsteps. Slow. Steady. Coming from the catwalks that ran over the processing lines. At first, I thought it was Marvin doing his patrol, but when I looked up, nothing. Just shadows and rusted guardrails. I radioed him. He answered from the front office. He hadn't left his post in 20 minutes. I told myself it was the building settling. Pipes, maybe. But then it happened again the next night. Same time, same sound. A distinct pattern, like boots crossing metal plating. This time, I crept up the side stairs to the catwalk and walked the whole span. It was cold, the kind of cold that didn't feel natural. I could see my breath, even though the rest of the factory wasn't that bad. The lights buzzed, the metal echoed under my feet. No one was up there, but the footsteps continued for the next 3 nights. Sometimes earlier, sometimes later, always the same pattern. Always when I was alone. Then I checked the clock-in logs. We used a digital punch pad to scan in and out. I rarely looked at it since it was just me and Marvin, but one night I got curious. Wanted to check how long I'd been on shift. That's when I noticed a name I didn't recognize. D. Halpern, clocked in 5:46 p.m. That couldn't be right. No one had passed me. Marvin hadn't seen anyone either. I checked with the office the next morning. They pulled the records. That same name, D. Halpern, had been clocking in almost every night that week. Here's the thing. That name didn't match any active employee. When I asked, the site manager looked confused. Said no one by that name had ever worked under our contract. So I did some digging. I found an old employee list from the factory's final year, 2019. Near the bottom was a line worker named Daniel Halpern. Died on site. It was an accident involving one of the catwalks, a collapse. He fell and was crushed by a supply lift below. They shut down the plant permanently a few months after that. No one ever told me. I confronted Marvin. He got real quiet, said, "You weren't supposed to know about that." Management didn't want to scare the new hires. That night, I stayed in the office between rounds. Around 1 a.m., the security feed in the packaging wing glitched for a few seconds, then came back on. Someone was walking across the catwalk. No ID, no uniform, just a figure in coveralls and boots. I rushed to the door, flashlight in hand, and sprinted to the wing. By the time I got there, the motion lights were flickering, and the air felt heavy. There was no one there, but one of the metal plates on the catwalk was bent inward, as if something heavy had stepped down too hard. I turned in my badge the next day, told them I had school, work, anything. They didn't ask questions, they just nodded. But before I left, the site manager pulled me aside, said he looked further into the clock-in data, that D. Halpern had last clocked in officially on March 14th, 2019. That was the day of the accident, and according to the logs, he's clocked in every March 14th since. Finding affordable housing as a college kid in Madison, Wisconsin is a nightmare. So, when I saw an ad for a room in an old farmhouse about 30 minutes outside town for dirt cheap, I jumped on it. It was a bit of a commute to campus, but the rent was only $250 a month, all utilities included. The listing said it was a charming, historic home with one room available and a live-in landlord. Sounded good enough. I didn't have many options. When I showed up, the place looked ancient. 2 stories, chipped white paint, long gravel driveway, surrounded by open fields and woods. The landlord, Mrs. Albright, was an older woman, quiet but polite. She lived in the main part of the house, and the room for rent was a converted sunroom on the ground floor, off to the side. It had its own entrance and a tiny bathroom. She said I'd have full privacy, and she rarely came to that side of the house. Sounded perfect. The only weird thing? The attic. When I asked where the stairs to the attic were, mostly out of curiosity, she just said, "Oh, that space has been sealed for years. Nothing up there but dust and bats." I didn't think much of it. For the first week or so, everything was fine, quiet, peaceful. The sunroom was drafty, but nothing a space heater couldn't fix. I studied, slept, and drove to class. Mrs. Albright kept to herself. Then the tapping started. It was around 11:30 p.m. one night. I had just gotten into bed when I heard it, tap, 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 directly above my head, like someone lightly knocking on the ceiling. I froze, thinking maybe something had fallen or shifted. Then it came again, tap, 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 rhythmic, spaced out, almost polite. I turned on the light and stared up. My ceiling was old wooden panels, no visible access point, just creaks and dust. I waited a minute, nothing else. Next morning, I asked Mrs. Albright if she had ever heard anything from the attic. She just smiled and said, "Old houses make old noises. You'll get used to it." That night, it happened again. Around the same time, tap, 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 always 3 knocks, always above the bed, never louder, never faster. I knocked back once out of frustration, then felt stupid. Who was I responding to? Bats? But it kept happening. By the 4th night, I stopped sleeping well. The tapping became something I dreaded. It was like a reminder that I wasn't alone. I finally got a flashlight and went outside to see if there was any way to check the attic. The only entrance was a small exterior hatch high up on the side of the house, completely unreachable without a tall ladder. It looked sealed shut. I knocked again on the ceiling during the next tapping episode. No response. Just silence. Until 5 minutes later, when the tapping started again, but not above me. It was now on the far end of the room, above my closet. Like whoever or whatever it was had moved. I didn't sleep at all that night. The next day, I asked Mrs. Albright again. This time, I was firm. "I know you said the attic was sealed, but is there any way someone could be up there?" She stared at me for a few seconds too long before answering. "Dear," she said softly, "you're the only tenant I've ever had that stayed longer than 2 weeks." I asked what that meant. She just waved me off. "It's just an old house, that's all." I started leaving at night to sleep in my car, but I kept coming back during the day for clothes and books. Then, one night, I left a voice recorder running while I was gone. I placed it on the nightstand and left for the night. When I checked it the next morning, I played back 4 hours of silence. Then, at 11:32 p.m., the recording picked up the tapping. Clear, deliberate, 3 taps, then something else. The sound of creaking floorboards, but from above, like footsteps. The recording ended with a soft scratch, right near the mic, like a finger brushing it. I played it for a friend. He told me to get out. I agreed. I went to pack my things that same afternoon. When I opened the door to my room, something was different. There was a note on my pillow, folded once, old paper, yellowed like it had been sitting for years. It read, "Stop knocking. You'll wake him up." That was it. I left everything but my car keys and wallet. I drove straight back to campus and couch-hopped the rest of the semester. I never got my deposit back. I never tried, but I did look up the address later. Turns out, in 1984, a young man renting that same room went missing. Report said he was last seen living in a converted sunroom. Search efforts came up empty. Police suspected he ran off, but a comment on a local history blog said he was heard knocking on the ceiling for weeks before he disappeared.